Soft steps seem most dignified, stomping proud for little men afraid. Gargoyles or grotesques were created to funnel rain, these days mainly decorative. Like poetry, once functional, often now just pretty swirls. Gates that keep them out become prisons for those in. The harder they come. Country boy with mango, robbed by city slicker. Who is who? I once swindled my heart for the promise of crumbs. Now I toss seeds to dream vultures. From vantage point of aorta bench, old man young watches blossoms explode from their carnivore beaks. Annoyed because, well, I keep getting interrupted. Dog, child, mom, wife, life. Scritchy screeching, poem world fragile, disintegrating napkin thoughts. Vacuuming madly because, well, death is humming to the dust bunnies. If only I could yawn. Imagine that, surrendering completely, assuming annihilation is in order, only to find the enemy adores you. Tortoise laws and gods. This episode is sponsored by AI Manager, an app for artist managers that creates an automated personality tailored to the idiosyncrasies of their assigned divas in order to strategically usher them out onto the red carpets without having to lose their minds and hair in the process. Today, the hearse has gone back in time to pick up my good friend and ex-manager, Scott Randell. We are scooping him up in the dense thickets of the unknown forest of forgotten songs, where we were once scouts on a mission to follow the hidden light. I think we are still doing that, actually, being scouts, and perhaps in a way we are still each other's managers. Actually, brothers is more like it, friends, mafia ties, etc. How you doing, man?
Amen. Goosebumps.
That's it. That's my compass.
I also see all sorts of interweavings of little things you just sprinkled in there. I heard Scout. I heard a whole bunch of little treasure troves.
Exactly.
That was beautiful. Did you write that?
Of course.
Yeah, of
Or
course.
something wrote it through me is more like it.
Yeah.
I like to
as
feel.
Always.
Yeah, exactly. But it's Groundhog Day, so I think that's pretty funny. An accidental alignment, and we've been on missions for a long time to weave creativity and commerce and the many beautiful discussions and ponderings we've had in Equinox steam rooms. I was remembering that before that show, and New York City clubs and wherever. Just
so many things, man.
Yeah. And the wisdom of the groundhog, as far as the Bill Murray movie of the same thing over and over again, but it's different each time, and relaxing into that. So that feels significant today.
It does, man. That is super ironic that today is the day we choose to have this discussion.
Exactly. So how are you as we ground in? What are you? Where are you in your heart and soul and body and mind? What's going on?
This year and so far this year, I'm just going to speak more of the recent past. It feels like my wife, she's big into astrology and sort of the universe as we speak about it sometimes, and I don't always key into it. I think it's still happening in a way that resonates with me, but I'm not aware of like, it's the year of, but this year I am aware that it's the year of the snake, and it undoubtedly feels like that, probably for the first time in my whole life. And I can't explain it better, but I do now, understanding what the year of the snake signifies. It does feel like I'm going to do a whole lot of shedding this year and a whole lot of sort of new growth and regrowth. I've been needing to do it anyway, kind of long awaited on some fronts. Some things that have been tying me down for a while, and procedurally, I just couldn't shake them any sooner, any faster. At least to me, I couldn't. And I feel like I'm ironically at the point of I'm about ready to shake a whole bunch of them free. And so it's ironic. That's kind of where I'm at, just in life as a whole.
I love that. And I like that it's in alignment outside on a macro cosmic level,
totally.
down to the,
how are you?
Your experience.
I know you're going to be asking me some questions here, but how are you?
No, it's a conversation, man. I want it to be a conversation. That's the goal for me.
Well, you know, with you, I'm always as about as solely invested in you as I am with anybody. So
I'll tell question. You, no, please do, man. I love that. And I'll also say, like, I think in the past, the ideas of roles, which goes down to something my friend Vitaly said yesterday that really struck me, that the moment we say our first word as children is the moment we begin to die, because we're in that like awareness of the mystery and the awe and wonder. And the moment you start defining things, it kind of kills it and imprisons it. So it's a paradox, because words can be tools. But the moment you say, that's a cat, to some extent, your brain now has categorized cat. And when you see a cat, you're not seeing the thing or the mystery being. You're seeing a cat, whatever that looks like to you. So for us, we met because I think how we met was music, obviously. And then you were also working.
I'm pretty sure, just specifics, I'm pretty sure part of it was at Sound Association on 8th Ave.
Yeah, sure.
Definitely part of it was there. And I would go up into that studio space.
Yeah. Who did you know? Was it Illmind or?
No, not initially. And I honestly can't remember how or why I would have found myself there, short of I know at that point I was still writing.
Yeah.
And I was somehow still blogging, and somebody maybe wanted me to come.
Oh, interesting.
It wasn't you. I can't for the life of me. But it was somebody in Smoky
Was it
Robot.
Ear Milk?
It would have been like around the Ear Milk time period.
Yeah, crazy.
Specifically the Ear Milk time period. And
yeah, interesting.
I can't even place it tighter than that.
And it doesn't matter, but we connected, speaking of like names and definitions. And what you said about solely, like how we're connected in this way, I almost feel like we spoke on this a couple weeks ago to some extent, but by having an agenda, which is beautiful that it attracted us to each other. Like, how can we help each other in this similar passion, blah, blah, blah. But outside of time, outside of agenda, our connection has always been just in and of itself a reward for me, which I think is a mutual just exchange. So that's awesome.
I mean, to completely riff off of what you just said, I actually think that when we had titles or tried to have titles, it was suffocating. And I'm noticing that across a lot of my life. To put a hat on to a degree, us as humans, it gives us definition, but it undoubtedly then sort of fragments what otherwise could be. Some people need fences because otherwise they stray too far in too many directions all at once, or at least we think so. Maybe it's exactly what they need, but it doesn't suit me right. And it doesn't suit other people right. So you put fences around everybody to control the chaos. But for you and I, that undoubtedly wasn't really going to ever be the thing. Whether it worked or not, it didn't matter. Like, it wasn't the thing. And we had to kind of grow out of that to probably come back here to do whatever we do next. But people specifically like you and I, and then just more across the board, just people limit themselves in their friendships and their potentials because all right, you do this and just do this. And it works sometimes. I'm not saying it doesn't, but for you and I,
No, yeah, exactly. I was driving to the gym before and just thinking about themes of my work. I've really been saying the same thing over and over again, which is why when I hear the telepathy tapes and I see like the biggest podcast in the world right now is dealing with groundbreaking, revelations and studies about telepathy, the afterlife through the, nonverbal autistic children, et cetera, like things that the mystics and trippy hippie motherfuckers have been saying forever, myself included with my lyrics, but now it's coming full circle with like Western science.
Yeah, to back it.
It's amazing. So I was driving to the gym and I was thinking about the idea of, to your point, of like framing a wave. It's kind of impossible to frame a wave. You know what I mean? Like that
Mm-hmm.
movement, the mystery. And so I agree that for some people, that really actually hit me the other week when we were talking, how you pointed out for what works for one doesn't necessarily work for another. And probably because we're all original beings who come down here, like Alan Watts said, like I mentioned to you, I always say this, but the trying to help another person is the equivalent of a monkey trying to rescue a fish from drowning by
Yeah.
putting it up in the tree. That being said, I do think that across the board, we are limiting ourselves. And the
Mm-hmm.
shedding now, to me, has to do with being vulnerable to surrender what we thought we were, the things
Mm-hmm.
we needed. Right before this started, I was just sitting here meditating a little bit, which I've been doing recently. And then check the Pattern app, which is an astrology app. And speaking of like being vulnerable with who you are, it talked about how my natural charisma and talent, and I have all this like, leadership qualities, etc. And I can be an intoxicating presence.
Mm-hmm.
And that in a bad way, if it's tilted in an unhealthy way, can almost be elitist or an inability to read the room and how I'm affecting others.
Mm-hmm.
And that I'm actually in this incarnation a baby and a beginner at feeling others' perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really good at feeling my own, and I do have these skills, and I am like an optimistic leader. So it was interesting and almost made me like second guess myself right before we started an episode. I'm like, oh shit. And I'd already been feeling that, like with you in this conversation, I don't want to be that tornado. I want to balance. So it's interesting,
You also, all right, but you know what? I mean, this conversation can only get heady to me. Like, why? Because no, dude, it's you and I are talking. Whoever's going to listen to this too. When I listen to myself, the dialogue you're having with yourself and I'm having with myself. And anybody who I think is trying to keep both pace with the world we happen to be living in, however much we've contributed to the way it is or not, how much we're trying to maintain self-sanity, a wholeness about ourselves, and also run faster and keep up. And like how dizzying this is. I mean, life, I think I said this to you, and this is also not to be misconstrued, but if my soul, if some other version of me asked to be born in this body, well, I have no memory of that personally, just speaking for me. But since I don't have memory of that, I'm grateful for being here, but I didn't ask to be here in the sense of now that I'm here, it's chaos. Like you wake up every day and I'm not even saying because of the modern world we're in. I'm just saying because you constantly every day wake up more and more if you're paying attention to what is out here and to how little you know. And all right, these are all cliches. You hear your parents tell it to you, your grandparents tell it to you. Everybody wakes up to this in their own way. But this is a tug of war moment, both probably for about the ages you and I are. It's also a tug of war moment for the society we specifically are living in because things are so much more high speed and chaotic. And if it was always this chaotic, it's certainly more in front of you now. And it's pulling at you all the time. It's compromising your inner peace, your balance, what pace you should naturally move at. So like if I didn't ask to be here, but now I am, I'm trying to play this hand. And this hand gets more and more heavy and complex every day, all while I'm trying to lighten the load of it at the same time and make it lighter and more simplistic. So I think a lot of what we're talking about here is this extrapolatory thought of, yeah, you and I worked in music together. Yeah, we're going to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff today, but we are at like a crossroads in both society and probably for ourselves that it's just, we're trying to grapple with kids in our lives, setting a good example, being a positive contributory energy towards society, but also to myself. And how do I lose my temper one day and apologize properly the next? And how do I stay calm sometimes and reward myself for it? It's just this constant tug of war. And so
100%.
trying to find peace with that, man. and balance in all this is a it's a full-time job. It feels like,
Absolutely. I mean, so I didn't even mention the theme of this episode when I
listened
thought
to the
of,
podcast, by the way, the link you sent me. I did
cool.
listen to
Telepathy.
it.
Trippy, right?
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. So I thought, okay, there's an old lost record from the Electric Bible days called Soul Yawn. In my somatic therapy that I do, which is more of a body kind of oriented therapy as opposed to simply your head and your thoughts. So it's really feeling into the wisdom of your body. And it's also kind of depth psychology as well. I notice when I relax into the sessions, I start to yawn. And yawning is a somatic release of like expelling or just relaxing. And, you usually only yawn in a relaxed state. And yawns can be contagious, and yawns can't really be forced, like a sneeze. You can't really make yourself yawn.
Mm-hmm.
So I like yawns as that kind of metaphor. So I thought Soul Yawn, that's the name of this episode. And then I was driving, and an Alan Toussaint, I call him Alan Toussaint, but someone was on the show who knows more about music and called him Alan Toussaint. So I don't know. But the legendary musician, if you're not familiar, from New Orleans back in the day, rest in peace, crazy musician, has a song called What is Success? And it's one of my favorites. So the theme for today is exploring what is success, among the many other things we're going to talk about. And everything you just said reminded me of that tug of war, that calibration, that daily return. It's all Groundhog Day life in that sense. And so it's all about the perspective shifts, or as a poem my dad sent me 5 minutes ago about an old man or a young man, it starts, eats a tangerine quickly and barely tastes it. And now an old man is given a tangerine after just losing his home in the fire. And as he peels it slowly and he feels the honey of the tangerine like go through his system, he realizes finally, naked in a sense, that he too has been peeled by careful fingers. That's a pretty powerful idea of being peeled by careful fingers. So if we come in, so what is success? And I wanted to actually read the lyrics from the Alan Toussaint song. Pretty simple, but I just thought we could bring him in and explore a little bit, especially because, again, we've worked in creativity and the intersection of trying to make that into a livelihood and the kind of beautiful paradox and the learning we've had to we've been blessed with from the tensions of experiencing that. So he says, how does one decide that the methods he's using, they just won't jive? Truly believing and trying over and over again, living in hopes that someday you'll be in with the winners. When should one change his mind and jump the fence, oh Lord, for the dollar sign? It's a sad thing, it's a bad thing, but so necessary that this cold world holds your values to become monetary. So, I mean, what is success? As yesterday a friend said it's for him, it's joy, and for me, when he said that, for me, it's self-acceptance, back to being peeled. And you asked a while ago, how am I doing? I feel like I'm more and more in acceptance of myself. And so all the outside noise, in a way, becomes wonderful context to amplify that inner peace, which is always here, which is my essence and my connection to something beyond my little mind. And so now when it gets louder, I can use that as a signpost to say, oh, time to go back into the peace. So anyway.
But that's your careful fingers opening the it's the same. All of these phrasings they share a commonality. And I was thinking about, when you give a kid a piece of fruit or anything for that matter, it's done with curiosity, but in its curiosity, there's like an element of oftentimes like chaos from it, right? Like, Christmas morning, a present, you tear that thing open, like you can't get in quick enough, right? As you get older, definitely age brings about a pacing that from the outside looks slow. When you're young and you look at an old movement, an older individual's movements can be I think it's often mistaken for frailty and weakness. But how do you know? Especially as the one being young, you can't relate to that yet. And in a lot of ways, undoubtedly, that older individual, although may be weak and frail, or neither, what if they are just opening it and just enjoying the textures through those processes? And that is definitely something that, what is success? Success for me is definitely twofold. It is knowing I've exerted my greatest effort. If my greatest effort sometimes is 10% of the next person's, but it's my greatest of 10%. The next time it's 100% next to somebody's 10. I know I gave my best effort towards whatever, all things, and then accepting that result. Yeah, that is basically success in a nutshell, because otherwise there is no end. If you stop at the end of the first thought, you are really never satisfied to give your greatest effort, but then to need to get something back out of it. Like that effort needs to be matched with a reward. Breeds nothing but just endless disappointment.
And it's hungry ghost, as you know, the old idea of just eating everything and tasting nothing. It, you know, that's the billionaire sickness. You know, you just it's never enough, and therefore.
Now, mind you, is there a billionaire out there? I'm guessing.
Yeah,
but because we you know, who do we really know? If we spend most of our lives, and that was part of what I was going to say before too, is I'm born, I'm trying to figure this out, but all the while I'm basically spending most of my own life trying to understand myself and what this is all the while. So hopefully by the time I die, when I check out of this body, I've figured some part of this out.
Yeah.
I spend most of my life trying to understand my diet, what works for me, how my mind works. Why am I anxious? Like, what is this rock cruising through space? You just trying to play catch up. And so, like success and some billionaire, maybe there is some well-off individual out there that played a hand. Yeah. No, I'm saying you're right for the most part, because undoubtedly the materialistic way it's represented is hard to not be seen as something as, that is an outward symbol to show you've done well, which means maybe on its face, you clearly aren't happy enough with knowing you did well yourself. You have to let everybody else know, right? I think part of what you're explaining there is something in that space. But Warren Buffett's probably the greatest example that we can think of somebody who's lived in the same home and drives the same car and is one of the most wealthy people on the planet. So he's probably akin to that. I'd love to, if there's a hybrid model to be able to be extracted out of all of that type, I want to work hard. And do you and I not want to be comfortable monetarily to whatever we deem that to be able to afford whatever you need, whether the thing you need is $5 or the thing you need is $5,000, you know,
more
if you
tattoos,
work hard, you can, which are not
and
cheap.
a hearse.
I mean,
no, I'm just playing.
It's like all of that. But that is success, because otherwise, like when I was a kid and first time I saw Pirates of the Caribbean, the way that they illustrate the pirates to be able to just constantly be unable to quench their thirst. Exactly. You see them drink wine and you see them just live around these riches and they can't feel it. Oh my God. I remember that being a kid, that hit me for some reason, being like, that looks torturous, man.
Torturous.
And people are living that every day for sure.
That's what I mean. I remember just the idea that, you know, to be able to actually eat a tangerine or drink a cup of coffee to arrive, that is success in a way. And for me, it has to do with aligning your will to the greater will, to the destiny. So if your destiny is to be very affluent, then that's your destiny. That's great. But I just don't want to. There's a quote that I brought in today from T.S. Eliot that he says, "I said to my soul, be still and wait without hope, for hope would be hope for the wrong thing." That's crazy to me. You know?
That's wild.
So like, what does this mean to us? How do we counterintuitively act from a wisdom beyond our monkey mind? Because it's like, I want this. There's so many Zen stories about this kind of mentality. What's good news? You remember that old one about the guy and like a horse comes and his son gets the horse and the villagers are like, oh, that's great luck that your son got this horse. And he's like, how do you know? And then his son falls off the horse and breaks his leg. And he's like, that's really bad luck. How do you know? And then the war comes, and because his leg's broken, he's spared from the war. Oh, what great luck. How do you know? On and on and on. So for me, it's like, yeah, surrendering in this life to what really is for me is what I find, and again, that's just my incarnation now, and however many I've had or will have. But yeah,
oh God, man, the amount of you and I have probably gone through both simultaneously together and separate, just like that word surrender. Again, you talk about language. That's a cat. Okay. The word surrender definitely has some drilled in connotations of failure and defeat and sadness, to surrender or to be weak again, like all those things that many of us struggle with. Because yes, surrendering. I mean, I admittedly at this point, as I keep getting older, I think I am both scared of less day to day than I thought I would have been at this age, and that I definitely was at younger ages, but I am arguably more confused and intimidated by the scope of it all and how little this really is. To surrender, really, honestly, it is like a cheat code. It doesn't mean give up. Like, again, like that, the waving, go to war. You're on the horse. You wave, you're surrendering. You're giving up. It's defeat. No. Okay. In that context, maybe, but like, to surrender, I had a fear of flying most of my childhood, early adult life, literally into my 20s. And the thing that I forcibly that I worked on to get myself over it was surrendering.
Yeah.
To say, I'm going up in this tube in the air. I'm not flying this thing. I can't get off of this thing. And somehow that was truly like the literal exercise of saying, yeah, Scott, you're going to have to like sit here and deal with this and work with this.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that. And I don't know whether airplanes were a metaphor for no control on a larger scale. But yeah, man, I mean, all of these things, truly, every which quote you're about to read and everything you've read thus far, they all collide. And I definitely think that you and I seem to be in a similar place in life in our own ways, where you and I have chosen similar paths. Maybe I'm not the musician making music, and we don't have to make this whole podcast about music, but just both of our pivots slightly, majorly away from music, to say it's not the only egg in the basket. And if it's still an egg in the basket at all, what does it look like? Am I chasing these fame-based points, these braggadocious points, these plaque-type points? Like, that is a trap. I hang it because it's here. It's a war. It's the tug of war again. I don't want to hang that. I honestly would rather put that in a drawer and leave it be. But at the same time, childhood engraves. Yeah, you do well. Not about the participation trophies of today, even, but like, came in first place. You want to display that. Feels good.
Definitely.
But then, who's looking at it anyway? How many people are in this room I'm talking to you in? Very few. Yeah. Now I look at myself. I know I did this. Why do I need to read my own name all the time?
But that's kind of funny that you're bringing awareness to it. Then it makes it okay to me. Like, everything, it's not about being perfect and spiritually you know. I just love that you have that awareness.
Yes, but we picked very award-based career path. At least at one point we did. Whether that's why we wanted it or not, you wanted to see your music placed somewhere important.
Yeah.
Blog, media outlet, streaming platform, commercial, movie. Otherwise, what good is it if it's reverberating endlessly to nobody? But then you cross that line and you're like, I do it anyway. If you can get there. Yeah, I did it before that. I liked it at 10 years old for a whole different reason. So these things are all the trappings of our industry. I think partially frame us even having to have this type of discussion at all. Because you and I have this type of discussion, I think subconsciously, because of some of the shared traumas and choices we've made with the career path we chose. Like, it's a brutal career path. And yet at the same time, I know you are highly gifted and always have been, and like supremely gifted. And some of what we've talked about. Yeah. But I mean, that, again, I'm only in this brain. I can only sit here. To me, that was obvious from 10 seconds into knowing you. And I think that is confusingly not the case for so much of what succeeds. Right. And that's been part of our battle here too, right? Not with each other, but, I was the manager at one point, and now you were the artist. And how do we fit you in this box?
Yeah.
So
it's confusing, man. And I love like reversing things that have negative connotations. I think often that's a key, like surrender. I wrote something recently as a joke in one of the emails I sent out, which similar to hanging a plaque, I'm like sending out email newsletters and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Why am I doing this? It's like, but at the same time, I hold it lightly and I'm like, don't let my ego even get so, like, just do it and whatever the fuck, pass it along. But anyway, I wrote that real men give up, which I think it's true in a weird way. At a certain point, you need to try. The giving up is not actually quitting. It's saying, my way does not work. Please show me the way.
Yeah.
So it's like, I no longer want to bash myself or force things. Have
some kindness. Show yourself a little bit of extra love that, like, I mean, some of these things start to quickly turn into the cliche phrases of, fall 7 times, get up 8, embrace failure. But like, it is that, man. And like, giving up sometimes is just, that's the year of the snake thing too. Just let's please shed some weight. I have definitely been trying to hold on to certain things that I thought were a core part of who I was, that I was refusing to give up on.
Yeah.
It's literally this. Mind you, the other plaques I got, just for example, I didn't hang them up. It's funny we're facing in this direction, because making that a point, I hung one and thought, I'm going to stop. Like, I don't like this feeling.
Interesting.
And that really disappointed me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, why was I working towards all this then?
You were like the pirate. You were the pirate trying to taste the plaque.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, but then it left me in an even more confused space to say, what am I going towards then? Like, if
that's the key right there, though, because you have to do it in order to know that. That's the prodigal son. That's the old. Apparently there was some monk who would only work with people who were wealthy, and I was like, why would that be? And apparently the ideology behind it was, unless you had wild material success, you wouldn't be ready for the next level, because you still might think that material success would make you happy.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Whether that's true or not, but there's something to that. Like, you got to try all these different ways. And there's two things that I like bringing in the immortals, if you will, the mystics. So there was this idea that I came across where Hermann Hesse, who's my favorite author, talks about sensing a greater meaning to life, but not knowing what it is, but that being enough. And in order to experience it, willing to sacrifice even himself, and that you can't force faith on anyone, not even yourself. I think that's really an interesting idea, that you can't force faith on yourself. But he goes on to say, anything that's like, when people don't have that connection to the ineffable, their unique, mysterious, the goosebumps, whatever you want to call it, then they fall into politics, socialism, religion, all these congregations with membership cards. And then that makes them feel safe. But if you really are on a path, you have to leave the congregation. And in doing so, you start to experience intense loneliness and solitude, and you question yourself. But if you stay in your solitude, on the other end of that, you actually come out the other side in a group that is invisible. He calls it an invisible brotherhood of a community that literally, like the immortals, that encompasses all religion and all cultures throughout time. And so I love that idea of like, I want to join by being yourself, truly, whatever that means, going through all the ups and downs, that you get to join. I can feel them, the immortals. So I wanted to bring up this short story, summarize it by Hess, where it's about a painter who wants to become a successful painter more than anything. And he's practicing. And the reason why he wants to be successful or to paint, I thought this was so crazy, beautiful as a way to summarize the artistic urge. He wanted to represent his inner fire, spark, world via painting nights and these beautiful, dramatic images, to then have them witnessed by people in the world who had a good distinguishing eye, who could then reflect back their praise of this that would help him see his inner world. I just thought, that's trippy. He goes on, practices, and it just doesn't work for him. It sounds like someone we know. But then he goes out and has this experience in nature. He kind of gives up. He's like, fuck it. But he starts having this experience in nature where he sees the way the light hits the river and the river interacts with the wind and the branches. And he has this like ecstasy feeling that's so overwhelming, and realizes that in his eyes and his sensing, all of these things are harmonizing and like becoming synthesized in this way. So it's like a euphoric moment. He starts having these in nature all alone. They become so overwhelming, like too much God energy in a body, that he goes home and starts painting. But this time he's painting from a different place. He doesn't give a fuck. It's just overflowing. Fills his apartment with paintings. Somebody is like, oh, he's been painting again. He doesn't care to show it to anyone. His friend asks for a key. He doesn't even want to be there when they look at it. So he goes on a trip and gives his friend his key. While he's away, they come in and they're like, a new genius has been discovered. He becomes famous, like super famous. And he reads an article about himself while he's on vacation. And they've changed the names of all of his paintings, so he doesn't recognize his paintings. He's like, wait, what painting was that? Comes back, goes to his house. There's somebody at the door charging money for tickets. He buys a ticket. They don't know it's him. He goes in and looks at all his paintings with these different names and has a weird feeling about it. It's not really bad or good, but he's just like, it's weird. Leaves, goes on, doesn't tell anyone who he is, leaves, goes on to paint many more paintings, but never shows them to anyone ever again.
Wow.
So I just thought, wow, that's a crazy short story about like the journey of an artist.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to bring that in here in our exploration of success.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that journey is, there are so many touch points. The point of finally not caring is often where you find success in most things. I think when you find, especially for the things that are difficult in life, the day-to-day successes, the small wins and stuff. Maybe you can accrue more of them throughout your life, but the big hard ones, you force them. You need it. You need it for get out of bed.
Yeah,
you don't get it.
No,
you need to get so kicked in the fucking dirt. You need to be so tired to just walk away and go back to either doing it for the reason you did it in the first place or stop doing it altogether.
Yeah.
When finally the faucet turns back on, creativity flows, and people will naturally then gravitate back towards it because you're no longer selling it.
Yeah,
you're no longer
exactly.
asking for anybody's attention from it. So that was one big touch point that I heard, and definitely, that is so applicable to so much of what works. And it's, even if it's not the attempt and then the rejection to finally be lonely, to finally get seen, anything that I think thrives more often than not still has all of those thankless, depressive, lonely hours. And by hours, we're talking like in the thousands, right? Like,
yeah, for sure.
Years of it in complete solitude, or at least in your mind, you feel in solitude and lonely and without resource. before the light turns on and suddenly, oh, it's the thing people can understand and it's palatable. And then we want to be a part of it. But you're talking about being a part of the congregation too, the societal congregation. That's where most people stop. Yeah, they'd rather just stay with the herd because it just hurts to be alone for most people, especially for long periods. And we're such literal beings too. Most of us, I think, at least from what I observe, that when you can't give somebody an estimation to say, if you walk away and go do something by yourself or in your version of solitude away from your tribe, your pack, but in 5 years you'll come out, more people would do it. But that's not how it is. And so for some people, you can walk away and you'll be back in a month. But for some people, you have to then freely know you may walk away and never come back. That scares most people. So they just stay and they never leave in the first place. And they don't meet the gods on the other end. They don't meet they never get there because it's too ambiguous. It's too long of a journey potentially.
And that goes down to the initial cultural difference between tribes in the past or cultures in the past that would initiate the young to that innate transformation or the innate just path of evolution that is the law almost of nature. You know, you do have to, you're here, you're born with something, a goal or a mission from, not even a mission, just like a calling, a destiny. And in order, all these stages of the development that we've lost, which are very mythological, which are very fairy tale. Yeah, you're right. I mean, so I have this question about that for people like us, you know, and it's in the T.S. Eliot idea as well. If success in a weird way can become even more of a coffin or a trap than even failure, because at least with failure, hopefully you still have the flexibility to keep trying new shit because nothing really works. I
actually think that failure in a lot of ways gives you the room to try new shit.
Exactly.
Because, and this is also something I wanted to call out, is the idea of walking away, walking free. Is that in and of itself a blessing that not everyone is afforded the opportunity to have? I'm not saying this has to be accurate. I'm more saying, do a lot of people have too much weight on them? Family weight, the financial burdens, like that I got to make this car payment. I have to put food on this table. And they just actually never get enough space to walk away. They have X amount of kids. Maybe they were unplanned. It's suddenly all of this stuff that's just crashed upon you. And you just can't figure out how to do the work to get away again. Because I think that that's a whole nother subsect of people that are dying to walk away. But in some ways, their version of walking away may cause some human type of decay and fallout and chaos.
So that's why we're seeing, in my humble opinion, the large scale shedding that's happening in the world, because the system is fucked and and it's impossible and it's designed to break you down. Like there is no escape within this system.
Yeah.
I mean, the only escape is to kind of lose your mind and like start operating in a different and find your mind in a weird way. Like in the song Release on Electric, it's like, I lost my mind, little darling, better lose yours too so you don't get left behind. You know, like unless you start operating in kind of an ecstatic conversation with your personal everything, I mean, grief and like follow a map that is no map, but your map. But even then, like you said, people aren't in a position to be able to do that. A lot of people.
Or are they? But I'm trying to, I think what's so valuable in having this type of discussion is, and I don't really speak aloud about this stuff a lot. I mean, I feel like you do maybe through this podcast, but you were doing this anyway to me before any of this. And I appreciated that at that point, because I do feel as though something about what you and I have been on this topic is important to at least speak out loud. Like it.
Definitely.
And then I wonder, why am I trying to say it out loud? Because I'm trying to work through this myself. But like, am I getting to a place where I'm trying to say this, to say it to you, to put it on a podcast so that hopefully somebody does hear it and it can guide them too? Am I trying to be a leader? Like in a way that I try to be a leader anyway, like, but not in this capacity.
Or are we following our calling because it feels
like
so good to do this? And it's really for us. It's for us.
Right. If it's for us, like, what does this unlock? Because I think that whatever we're trying to put our finger on right here, whether it's something super literal or just like a vibe and an energy to follow, we are not the only two people trying to figure this out. And I'm not saying this as far as even we're all trying to figure out life. No. I think that, we are at a clashing point in human history.
Yes.
Or on this planet, like every so often these periods come back around and rubber meets the road. And we, I think, do happen to be alive during a point in time where that is happening. And
astrologically, speaking of that, apparently the way the planets and stars are aligning right now has never happened in recorded history. So this is climactic, right? We have, apparently, according to autistic nonverbal people who speak to deities and whatnot, we are
in
existing.
That podcast, my jaw was on the ground just listening to some of that.
We are existing everywhere simultaneously. There's no time. So our souls, and I like the idea that our soul kind of fractals into this form, which is why I've always felt kind of half awake and half asleep, because I feel like I'm missing my full consciousness, which is I will go back to, and then I'll have had this experience to integrate into my Voltron me. But I think A, that it's climactic. B, I remember being in taxi cabs in New York City, and certain moments, two in particular, one where I was just talking like I do, and the taxi driver looked at me and was like, "You're a tripped out dude, man. Like, you're saying some," and to me, it's normal. So it surprised me a little bit like, whoa, really? This is just like normal shit. So now I think the hearse is my version of being that taxi driver who's normalizing talking like this to the passengers, or vice versa. Or you're driving the taxi, whatever. And then being in the hearse, I was about to say, in a taxi, coming back from a New Year's party, couple friends, couple girls. I'm with some woman that I met. And like at the moment I say this, the whole car goes quiet. For some reason, the song changes. It's like perfect silence. And right then I had said, "Do you ever think about death?" And everyone was like, "Bro, chill, dog. That's whack. What are you doing, dude? That's stupid. Shut up, man." And like that. So
how old were you?
I was probably like 22, 23.
Nobody wants to hear that shit yet.
Yeah, exactly. But I've always been. And I wonder if that's like, now is the time. Now it is time to me for the mystics who have been, or you think of indigenous cultures in the land everywhere, where you are, where I am, all the beings who have been waiting, the immortals, for us to arrive. So in the apocalypse, or whatever dramatic metaphor you want to have, where chaos starts to, it's always been chaos. That's what someone told Molly recently. It's just being unveiled. So I won't say names or political, but all this shit that's happening, whether it's the cool stuff like telepathy tapes or the political stuff that's like, whoa, ridiculousness. It's all what is it here is being shown. So it's always been chaos.
Yeah, the revealing of it is oh my God, could you imagine if we were able to post on Instagram or X, Genghis Khan's tirades across Asia, the elimination of villages and societies, like, I mean, just couldn't broadcast it. This has always been a tyrannical, disastrous space, and it was when dinosaurs roamed, and it was when,
So I'm excited now because we're those. Sorry, you go.
No. It's just unearthing, is what I was going to say. Yeah,
exactly. And I'm excited because I feel like the question, "How are you?" If you really mean that, I try to make sure I mean that, because obviously it's like a go-to, just like, "How you doing? What's up?"
I feel you when you ask me that.
Yeah, I try
question.
to.
Yeah,
cool. I like that. So for me, really, when I tap in right now, specifically in the past month after being in really intense depression, when I got officially sober, went
Yeah.
offline for 6 months, technically retired. I didn't announce it, but that's how I was like, I'm done. And then it started to come back, and I'm watching it because sometimes it does feel like, oop, am I slipping into an old little thing, or there's something
Oh yeah,
tugging?
man. Yep.
But when I check in with myself, how am I doing? It's real tender right now. It's a tender time, man. I can feel a family member's health issue. It's
Mm-hmm.
tender. I can feel the fragility of life in my household,
Mm-hmm.
but I can also feel a closer connection to the immortal in me
Mm-hmm.
that is just cruising in a hearse through what I think is more death. I think life is more death than death, honestly. When I was
Mm-hmm.
manic in Harlem, I was like, yo, we're in purgatory, y'all. You don't realize we're all dead. But again, words, life, death, we've created a separation of what we
When you
assume.
said that, then what did you mean? What were you?
What
What
I
were you
meant
trying
is
to
like,
say?
what I meant was we are immortal beings doing this thing over and over again. And this, I saw Harlem as like this haunted, like purgatory.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
But now, without the marijuana, without the unhealthy, like chemical starvation and alcohol, and it was beautiful and terrible. And there was a tinge of paranoia in it. So I think that's where the word purgatory would come. Now I wouldn't call this purgatory because that has a connotation of some sort of punishment or some
Mm-hmm.
sort of,
Like,
to me,
yeah.
this is like a beautiful game,
Mm-hmm.
like kindergarten. Like,
Yeah, it
let's call
is.
it fucking kindergarten for the
Mm-hmm.
immortals. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
like a lesson, an experiment. But yeah, for me, when I check in, how am I doing? It's obviously multifaceted, but I'm really excited right now. I'm really happy because I feel like the outer world is, it's almost like I feel like I made a bet when I was little with my like cosmology. And that's why I've been writing all this shit about eternity and love and creativity and blah, 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 blah. And I thought I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, I was beaten down, and now I'm like, oh shit! I think my horse is starting to come on the curve, and the mafia, the fat cats are starting to sweat a little bit, and they're getting red faced and they're getting angry. All those dudes who were waving their gin and tonics down in the front row, and I'm up here with the weirdos, and I'm like, oh shit, the pony is coming through, dude. So I don't
Well,
know.
what's funny is that if there was ever a time where you were betting on that horse because you believed it to be right, what's funny is even as it hasn't been, you kept betting on it anyway because it just really does speak to who you are,
I
even
had
through
to.
the tug of war again of of those two different sort of societal pressures or things you want. No, I'm not saying that right. Things you wanted. You wanted probably to do things in a way that felt truly true to you, while also kind of doing things that innately because of music or choices that like pulled you in that potentially fat cat direction.
Yeah.
You got closer to it and rejected it and said, I don't like anything about this. Now I'm seeing that this is a problem and I'm going to bet against it.
Yeah.
But you were going to continue to do this even if you phrased it as not one versus the other. You
Yeah.
just happen to be alive at a point where like it is, the pendulum is swinging back in the direction that speaks closer towards what you've been saying for a while anyway.
And as I said, that funny horse metaphor, which I think is really cute and I like it,
Mhm.
I realized like the painter's story though, before the bet goes in reality, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna leave the whole auditorium because I don't actually care if I win or lose, man. The whole point was right there, so I'm gonna bounce. That feels more.
I
Because if
mean,
I get too excited about my horse winning, I've kind of fallen back
you
into
get
the
back
same
into it. You're in the
trap.
race still. Yep. Yep.
You know.
Well,
So
it's just the same metaphor you used a little while ago about leaving and walking your lonely path.
yeah,
You kind of
exactly.
have to leave the whole race entirely then too. Yeah, like, but at the same time, these things are way easier said than done, and that is also
Definitely.
important to call out. I just, I told you I just finished a year of no drinking myself because I
Yeah.
too struggled with it immensely and way more than I ever thought I did
Yeah.
because I definitely just kept on cruising with it.
Yeah.
and, was forming habits that like are far beyond normal, were beyond normal.
Yeah.
But my normal was just my normal. So I kept rewriting what it was. And yeah, I didn't, that naivety that we have as children, just you look around at those that suffer from significant issue, problem, addiction, or, something, in that vein. And you're like, no, I have a good foundation under me. I'll avoid that. But man, you just so many times over, I've at least shown myself that like, although my intentions have been relatively pure for the bulk of my life, I have fallen in pits just like the next person. And that is humbling and also sort of encouraging actually towards, at one point you feel very alone because you're embarrassingly in that position. At the same time, you feel as though you're actually fitting back in while also leaving the herd. It's like I've disappointed myself, but now I'm realizing everybody's disappointed themselves. And I was actually trying to stay lonely. All the while, I was completely in the middle of the mess, creating my own mess. So yeah, to come out of that and to be dealing with all these like pressures of, no, but you know what though? I still want to win. I don't want to lose. But then if I start to really want to win again, all right, let's go. Yeah. And then if I go, something comes back in that then becomes more damaging than it's worth.
You might have a drink here and
drink
there.
too. Yeah. And even if it's funny, I welcomed it back in this year. And to my delight so far, I have definitely, my palate has been reset. And I can't tell if I've drank so heavily, so much in my life before, that in the alcohol category, I'm 60 already. Because now when I drink, I'm noticing at least, and maybe I needed the year off to really clear things just enough. Yeah. Take off 2 weeks is not enough time. At least it wouldn't have been for me.
Yeah.
I took, longer stretches off and still didn't have nearly enough time. Yeah. But at a year, I now am reintroducing it and realizing, oh yeah, this gives me heartburn. This makes me uncomfortable. I feel this coursing through my veins. I'm angrier. I'm ready to do something.
Yeah.
And it's not good. Whatever that false sense of courage it's giving me, or anger it's bringing up to the surface. And that's interesting to realize. So now it's like, damn, that was like a nice friend of mine though. So
I know for sure.
And I hate to say that it was, because I don't have a lot of other vices. And I've told my wife that like alcohol and I were just, friends because we really got along, or at least I think we did. And you do shit that doesn't get along with me. I'm not like that. So now I'm losing a friend, but like, again, the rebirth, the snake, the whole thing. Yeah.
I think a lot of it for me was using alcohol, weed, because I was scared of how much I am. I'm too much for people. So I'm trying to, in a way, dampen that or alter that or nullify, fuzz that out a little bit so I can kind of fit in. But I think when all humans are, I think, God, if you will, or has that energy. So like you and I in particular, I think are powerful, intense guys, like passionate beings. And so by trying to repress parts in order to fit in, it kind of worked maybe for a while, but at a certain point you have to just be fully yourself. And then I think actually stretching out, like the lion who's looking in the mirror thinking he's a kitten, finally knowing I'm a lion, maybe then you're not so uncomfortable and don't need things. And then when you do reset your palate and you try it, I just noticed like, wait, I miss myself suddenly. I remember I was 7 years sober. The first half of beer I had, it was like a hard kombucha. I was like, whoa, I feel really intoxicated from this. And I missed myself. I think that's a really nice way to put it. Like you fall back in love with who you are and how sensitive, how tender it is when you slow down and reset your palate. Like a cup of coffee is really intense. Like it affects you. So I love that, man. And I wanted, I feel like we could have our own show, and you're welcome here anytime, because this is just a lot of fun and feels reciprocal and
I
natural.
agree.
I wanted to, and my point is, I like the conversation of this, and it's like off script. That's beautiful. There was a point that I wanted to kind of inquire, which is navigating the industry and keeping your heart. That's like half of it, like what your experience is with that, because I think you do that. And then the kind of joke side of that is balding for the right reason. So that plays into the like AI manager, and you have a full head of hair. You look very healthy and handsome here. But the idea of like navigating that world, which maybe is crumbling and maybe it'll change. Maybe we'll get to live to see a more healthy, deciduous, seasonal kind of industry. That'd be cool. Even if it's not the main industries, and I'm sure there already are those now. What is your experience with that? Like keeping your heart, navigating the industry, and being stressed sometimes maybe for the right reason.
Yeah. Well, when specifically talking about music, I am more wholly involved in fewer things. And that is probably the healthiest decision that I have made, because I realized that by doing so much, I was really doing a halfway decent job with all of it. And I know that that can then be applicable to pretty much anybody for anything. But in our line of work, the devil is in the details to me, and it always has been. And there's nothing more frustrating than trying to rub shoulders with all the wrong people who already give you all the wrong vibes, to then also know that should those interactions go well, you don't have a strong enough foundation under you to make effective decisions, or pull in the amount of money that a good placement may yield, or something to that effect, and you miss the whole opportunity altogether. So like, I've seen far too much of people being good at the relationship building component and not being good at the infrastructure business building component. So I've actually gone back to really line by line assess the inner workings and inner developments of what I touch. And that then therefore has given me more space to take on, at least for now, fewer projects, but just a couple that I truly believe in, that have intersected with me while I've been on this path. And then as I get an effective system up under me that I've stress tested and know works line by line, I'm just saying it's going to open more doors again to where more of the you and I's and those out in the world like that can better work together. There is far too little credible talent, in my opinion, out in the music landscape. And there's plenty of good talent. Like, I could write for minutes and minutes and minutes of the names that come to mind. But I would need the next few years to write the list of those that don't.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of, I'm kind of answering your question, but I mean, a lot of, it's an insulatory answer. Like, I have really constricted down to a handful of things, but that is because of not just me believing in the things that are left, but it is to actually now finally say, all right, at my age, it is important in a way I maybe didn't fully think it was, to treat this operationally like any good business. And because of that, it then becomes a self-inflection process. It becomes the shedding of skin, like the year of the snake. It all kind of collides, because if I can be good at knowing that when I step back and this house is structurally built, and safely built, and it took me a super long time to really get that, then the next one can be built, even if at just the same speed. I know it still has that integrity. And I'm trying to lead my life in a way where the things I do tackle are going to stand the integral test of time, even if I don't yield the benefit. So like, that. Yeah, there is just a sacrificial component to working in a line of work that is so snake-like and shark-like. And so by coming back to a center that's a lot more singular, I think from an industry's perspective, from a colleague's perspective, maybe I've disappeared to some degree. If you work with me on the few things that I do work on, I think you see a lot more of me, and I arguably may be even more of a presence. But if you don't see me, it would be easy to assume that I've gone away. And it's maybe because the things that I've chosen to focus my time on may be the biggest thing on the planet in some amount of time. And if it's not, I'm still choosing this path because those specific things, like what you and I are still looking to do, are in line with each other from a spiritual, holistic, human level perspective. And that's kind of my answer.
That's huge.
There's no terminology over it. I wouldn't even get into all the idiosyncratic details I did just kind of dust over are really important to me, but they're really just, they're only important to me because procedurally I know that they count, but the takeaway is it's a head down perspective where you expect nothing back in return. And I'm trying to just be really, really good all the way through, laying every brick, every piece of the track, so that when it gets to its final destination, no matter where that is, no matter how high or low or how society perceives it or how I feel about it, it got there, and it got there well. And I undoubtedly know that at the end of my life, no matter what I touch, if I keep that mindset, I'm just leaving things in a better place. I can't say it any better because I can't forecast how it ends up playing. But that mentality, I just was doing a lot. And alcohol, things that I was doing in my life, were breeding chaos. We're breeding speed. We're breeding the disillusionment of efficiency and success and certainty, like that, all of those things that now as I've zoomed out and I've slowed down, I've realized I didn't really have together in the first place. And that's discrediting me. I feel like, there are maybe some people that I've talked to about this, you now being one of them, where some of what I've gotten back is, man, I don't see it that way. Don't be so hard on yourself. But that's nice to hear. They also would just be being nice. But I feel like that's the case. And really, I can't get out of this body. So I know I'm not far off the mark. And that's just because I spend a lot of time trying to be honest with myself.
I think our essences shine through regardless. So I think beneath all of that, we were still there, but we were watering it down with the unnecessary parts or compromising or overriding our intuition. What you're saying makes me think of honoring the intuition, and that requires saying, you know what, that doesn't feel good. And even though it seems like I'm supposed to be rocking with this person if I want to make it, that doesn't feel right. So I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to go do this that feels right.
Like in the route to take that you're kind of being taught, because in this line of work, there is so little guidance. And oftentimes then you have to then couple that lack of guidance with those that give it to you often having ill intent. So now you've got the kind of worst of both. You're being fed things that otherwise probably don't need to be, but you also are being taught by people that kind of, in many cases, I sound like a cynic, but I've just lived this experience, that also didn't really want to see me thrive in any which capacity, no matter what you even define that to be. So
with the intention of being open-minded and knowing that I'm, like you wonderfully reminded us in the beginning, we're operating from our own vantage point and assumptions are assumptions. But from what I've gathered, a lot of the industries, unfortunately, are true where it's like, perhaps if you're a woman, who are you fucking?
Yep.
And if you're a man, you're going to kind of be that bitch boy because it makes them feel good. So they're going to shit on you. And then if and when they die out, or, you know, you've stuck around long enough and endured the trauma, whether man or woman, then maybe you will get to be in their position, and then you're going to most likely repeat the trauma, and it's a trauma cycle.
Yeah, well, this junction that we're at right here, oh man, and if I could tell you in the ways I feel strong about, I've endured it. I've been tried to get kicked out of this club. I was not welcomed in this club. It's too many people in this club. I refuse to get kicked out. And again, that's the competitive part of me. But in refusing to not get kicked out, you're right. Some of those people that were trying to probably keep me and many others out in the first place are retiring or dying. And guess what? I'm also realizing a lot of my ideas were pretty solid from the jump, and they were a bit different. And I'm not saying I'm redefining society with my thoughts. Like, my ideas were free thoughts that I looked at in certain scenarios and said, that makes sense to me. And I was only told that is not a good idea. Don't follow that path.
It threatened.
And at the time, I didn't understand that it even was a threat. I thought it was legitimately a bad idea. So I tried to learn the way that was told to me. And it's taken me this amount of time to now come around to some of this, even with some of the people that I've still dealt with now, to say, oh, I see you now. I see myself now a bit better. And I know the path I'm moving in is one of legitimacy. And I do understand what I'm doing. And I've been told I haven't a fair amount, all while still being here, growing and doing things and somehow succeeding to some degree, no matter how you define that. But I really haven't yet. So now, y'all motherfuckers are retiring and dying off and making room for me. You know, even if it legitimately is that I was trying to make room for myself the whole time and just kind of needed some time to just endure the traumas, the teachings, the lessons, to now get to this age and say, ooh, there's two things are about to happen. I'm going to step into something way more forceful. And at the same time as I do, I cannot commit that crime of pivoting back and starting to and regurgitate and recreate the cycle. I would like to be one of the few. On my deathbed, if I've done one thing right in this line of work, I would love for it to be that I had the opportunity to actually make it truly in the way my teenage, idealistic, naive self wanted, and still with doing so, did it in a way where I helped to break down barriers and walls and not recreate the cycle. And if I can stand on that, I'll have done my job. I don't care who I've represented or what I've done in my life or how much money I've brought in. That has been probably, out of all things, the thing that has hurt me the most in doing this line of work, is in seeing how much suppression is involved and in how much bad dealings is involved. I would, in my own little way, am I going to run Universal Music Group? I don't know. Probably not by choice, but if I did, if somehow these bigger opportunities came my way, and they came my way at that point, I'm thinking only because I'm going to have stayed on this course with this mentality at that point. Oh, then that door would be wide open. And if it were me walking through it, I'm going to keep doing me then and help to try to rewrite some of this. But even in this current space, that is the thing to navigate. And I feel like that's probably applicable to most lines of work, although I can't relate to them. There's a lot of and that's, again, back to I don't know if I asked to be born, but now that I am, I'm trying to figure out what this hand I'm even playing is. And I keep thinking I'm holding 5 cards that have these values, and I'm now realizing I've been holding 7, and these aren't any sort of value I understand at all. So trying to make sense of, like, oh, this whole procedure here is baked in from decades ago from people who had other intentions, and I'm playing their hand, basically. So, like, trying to navigate through that entirely is its own game, while also trying to rewrite the game. So, like, it is an impossible task that, if I look at it in that way, that the weight feels so heavy, I just wouldn't deal with it. But honestly, I love the pursuit of thinking that maybe that can be a possibility, and that I can stand here now and be irrelevant to many, and still at the same time be laying bricks that I'm certain in my soul are important to lay to get to the point where when I finally do step back in and have a bigger voice, it is in a place where I've come from both. I'm the hybrid perspective. I have danced the dance. I have played that hand. I've tried to do things that way. And I have also left the herd, and I have walked back with free thought to land back in a place to say, all right, I needed to know how the rest of y'all felt to speak to you effectively. And now let me give you a better set of tools to hopefully give you some freedoms that you didn't otherwise have. So, you know, I don't know where this is all headed, but that is kind of my like life thesis statement as far as work is concerned. And that's applicable to all the stuff we didn't even touch on. The production company I co-own, the other stuff I'm looking to do. Like, I am trying to just find a way where we can, when we check out of these physical bodies of ours, that like it's not just the catchphrases of leaving this place, this earth, better than, you know, the way you came in, you leave it better on the way out. I really want to contribute, and if I don't on that big a scale, I'm still going to be I'm going to be doing the same thing in smaller ways, you know, in whichever ways I get a chance. So
you might be running the Heaven record company as far as I'm concerned. That's it. That speech, that what just came through you makes me vote for you in eternity. Amen. Running that record label.
I appreciate it. That it really is. I think that I have tried to humbly take my lashes. I've probably taken lashes I didn't need to take. I probably didn't realize I didn't need to take them. And now that I've realized some of what I've taken that I didn't need to take, mixed with all of those that I undoubtedly needed to, it's both fueled me sometimes on certain days, admittedly, in a bad way, where I want vengeance. I'm human. I'm trying to check that at the door to say, all right, as I transition out of that space, because the realization of knowing I was wronged in times where I didn't know I was being wronged is a pretty harsh thing to awaken to. And only in the hindsight to say, oh, well, the contributing player on the other end probably knew they were causing some amount of harm. It's hard to not then immediately feel the human part of that on the surface and say, I want to take you out, you know, but then to move beyond that to say, well, I can't probably take you out, nor can I change that. But actually by living through that, I've now become informed enough to say the next line of people that are going to deal with it, those that at least pass through me and have to deal with it, I'm going to empower and pay it forward, you know,
teach a man to fish.
Just fish, like learn how to fish, like and truly, like being given a fish is nice sometimes. Sometimes getting that helping hand in the short term is important, but not nearly as important, obviously, as fishing. So like, but then it's about, no, it's not even just fishing. Here, go stand over here during this time of day. Go stand over here this time of day. Use this rod, not that.
Don't catch too many fish that you don't need because you're going to spoil the system.
Right. As much of that as I can learn and then give back is really like the life mission, because in all the while, like there is more abundance that will naturally come from that I'm not asking for anyway. If I'm talking to the universe, my wife tells me this a lot, like you have to put your intentions out there to the universe. You have to have them be heard. And I actually am realizing that although I think I've probably always been doing that, I probably break the code and it upsets her. I sometimes completely do the opposite. And I just say that, like, I don't know. And this is, again, if she were in this room, it'd be reverberating. It'd be like, I don't know what I'm actually really intended to have. Like, it's not the point. I'm a vessel. Like I work my ass off. I obviously want the greatest of all the things, that whatever I can bring in, monetary or not, tangible or not, spiritual or not, but I'm just putting the energy out, and whatever comes back is just what's going to come back, you know? So like,
That's the T.S. Eliot, right? I said to my soul, be still and wait without hope, for hope would be hope for the wrong thing. That's the way with manifestation, I think, is very slippery slope. And I think you keep it vague, like your list to Santa Claus. You don't say, I want ... You say, I'd like something that would be good for me and make me really feel fulfillment and peace, and that would be in harmony with the universe and recyclable.
Yes, I have said, 11/11, make a wish. Any other time, make a wish, blow out a candle. I've wished for the same 3 things my entire life. And I cannot explain to you why at one point early, I already came to the decision that asking for specifics were foolish. But I'm saying 8, 9 years old. I have asked for the same thing every time it is applicable, daily on 11/11, or my birthday every year. I have asked for, and I won't reveal them only because of the fact that, like, doesn't that break some sort of universal code? Not
jinx the wish.
Right. My wishes are arguably so not specifically literal that you couldn't break them anyway, but I won't say them. And it's just, but the stretches throughout my life where I have found faith, or faith found me, and I have prayed, I have said prayers that have nothing to do with then a point in time, where some people pray and it deviates and it then becomes maybe some custom written thing, or something that then asks, please, universe, God, please save me from this sickness. Please give me this, get me out of this financial hole. Like, I actually, for some reason, for me, I think that if I'm then just asking for that, I'm then maybe going to put that out into the universe and get that. But what if I needed something else? I just am trying to push the right energy out. And if I need to get out of this hole, well, the larger, kind of more generic thing I'm not specifying in my belief is going to yield me that anyway. And if I don't get out of that hole, well, that's the thing I had to deal with then anyway. So, like, no matter how I flip, no matter how I flip these thoughts, I come back to the same place over and over again. Like, I'm not supposed to be asking. I have plenty of specific, tangible goods that I'm happy to have, and I would be upset if I lost.
Yeah,
because I've worked to get them.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I didn't really ask to get them either. We kind of just found each other. Me and tangible good X, or food I didn't know I liked Y, or wife Z. Like, I just kind of collided with these things. I asked to be loved, to fall in love. I didn't draw her out in a certain shape and size and whatever.
Yeah.
So, like, that is, and nor do a lot of people, but I don't think a lot of people then put that thinking across all platforms, throughout all parts of life. If I find the nice things, cool. I worked for them. And I like having them. I actually do truly have, like, my mom used to say, I have champagne taste with beer pockets. This is teenage me that was broke as a joke. I do like nice things, but I also am not trying to find my way to the acquisition of them. If I can just have them anyway, fine. But if I can't, fine too.
Another quote that goes with it, I'm having a blast, man, right now in the
well, we've now gotten into, like, we've entered into a flow state. We entered into it a little while ago here.
Wow, oh, yeah. I know. It's crazy. Oh, man. Greedily I do. I'm like, all right, we're starting our own show. From now on, we're doing it.
When you asked me the question, you asked the right question, and you wouldn't have known it. You asked me the question, how do you deal with this thing about this work thing, right? In a lot of I am a hardworking, borderline, not workaholic. I'm now married with a stepdaughter who's 14, and I am trying to do right. That balance is key. But naturally, me. Like, I am a hardworking workaholic. I commit a lot to my craft, to the work, to getting this far. For wherever I'm at, wherever you're at. Both of us, if you have teenage you look at your current self, we would both probably be, like, tickled with how far we've got.
Killing it. We're killing
it,
man.
Only then, when you're in these positions, then is it okay? Let's not become the pirate that's never satiated, because do be appreciative. But when we are here, do you naturally want to grow your channels? Do well.
So my condensed little vitamin version metaphor of those beautiful things you just said, to some extent, would be another quote by, I think, T.S. Eliot, but it's, those who the gods wish to punish, they grant their wishes. That shit's crazy, man, and that's real.
Yeah.
And then the other one, or they say those wild. Who the gods wish to punish, they first make famous. But then, recently, about the kind of journey you've been on, what really struck me among the whole thing, because we're in the flow state, was the idea of being told your ideas are bad and then thinking they're bad. So, like, Electric Bible's coming out and it's fairly invisible, but I'm in the kitchen this morning dancing to it, and I know that shit is some of the coolest music in the fucking universe, period. I don't give a fuck. And it sounds like demoitis or whatever you want to say. The mixes are funky. That shit is crazy music, bro. Like, it's ecstatic. for me, and I've seen it with others, but it doesn't matter. So knowing that I have had this truth and then realizing that it's butted up against certain things and that I have become an outcast, maybe. I mean, I don't know, but maybe I was threatening. Maybe I was so talented in a certain way that it was too much. Maybe it wasn't because I wasn't good enough. It was because I was too high powered or shining a light too. So maybe. But then
That's
I
how I
think
felt. Yep.
spiritually, though, it doesn't even matter either way because it's still a lesson for me. It doesn't actually have to do with anything that's going on. So it's a wonderful lesson for me to be humbled, like that pattern app was telling me, the unhealthy and healthy balance of my charismatic, natural, whatever. So therefore, I get to go through those experiences like you described, then have my ego be like, actually, I think I'm so fucking talented and smart that I'm just running circles around these people and they don't want to deal with me because it's like you're dealing with a savant poet who it's just too much. It's like too much information. And then I go through that little thing and then that doesn't matter either because who gives a shit? And maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But a lyric that I wrote with Red, so he added this lyric of like, I'm the man with the sound now. So I was like, all right, I'll put that in. But then right after I say, never mind, I'll be gone by the time that you're back. You can have the crown. I'll be that lunatic on the corner that you pity as you pass by. Fair enough. Something, something, give you dap. All something, something, all love till it caused heart attack. And that last line was like the punch in the gut. It was like, fair enough, all love till it caused heart attack, motherfucker. So watch that shit. And being the lunatic on the corner that you pity as you pass by. Like,
Yes.
take the crown, man.
Yes. Wow. Because that is, you are just the artistic. That is what I'm saying.
I know.
That is what
exactly.
you're saying. That is what we're
exactly.
feeling. I actually think that what makes this state that you're currently in and that I'm currently in is that there is an element of a human element of feeling not frustrated and betrayed, but motivated by the idea that for wherever I've gotten to, there's a version of me that thinks I should be based on what I've put out there somewhere else, somewhere further, or I don't know. But at the same time, what that's yielded is this real strength of saying, I'm just doing this because I know the way I'm moving about this is a way that really feels true to me, and you can take it all away. I will figure this out. If you cast me out tomorrow and I had to go, my business partner on the production company front, he's got this really interesting line that he's kicked around a lot. And he's like, I've got such faith in myself to the point where if life fell apart and I was a janitor tomorrow, I'd just be running the janitorial department in a year. And that kind of some version of that really sticks with me because it's like, go ahead, take away my music status, my management status, my importance, the trophies, the shine. I am moving to a beat that I know to be true, and it's true because I see it apply and work. So if I'm going to be diminished for what I think is otherwise accurate, and I'm making this out to be more than I am not being routinely shit on and put in corners. Not anymore. Not in that way, at least. But even if I feel like I am, it's Eminem in 8 Mile where he raps, he takes all of his punchlines away from his opponent. Go ahead. I am these things. What are you going to say now? It's kind of the truth I'm trying to live in.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that's kind of where you're trying to live too, is just, we've had all of these cyclical things that are constantly trying to be, would it feel nice tomorrow, bro? If you just out of left field for good reason, for random reason, were just said, you're the most gifted talent on the face of the earth, and we want to put you in some pantheon where you then look at it and say, oh yeah, I rightfully deserve to be there. This is what I've been trying to tell you guys.
I've actually had this secret little hope that when the aliens reveal themselves this year, that the last announcement that they say after their speech is, by the way, Electric Bible is our favorite music on earth.
Yeah, and there is, dude, for as much as we're preaching here in some capacity to say, we are working, you and I are the types of people that are working to be healed beings that both want money and celebrity influence alongside complete isolation. I don't need any of that. I can be in isolation, but if I thrive and I'm surrounded by those that other people deem to be super important in the ethos of humanity, I don't mind that either. But if I'm there, over on that side of the fence, I'm now this guy. So this person is going to be in that room as this guy. And I'm trying to say this to say, this is the thing. If I'm over there as this guy, I'm now there for the right reasons because I'm me. And it is all God and the universe's timing in that way because there were undoubtedly points previously that if I were inserted in that equation at a younger age, of which, don't get it twisted, I already thought I was at points. Now I've realized, that was the periphery. That wasn't, you weren't in the game, Scott, wake up. But in that awakening is like, I'm also real glad because I probably would have thrust into that environment and been hell-bent on raising hell and making my name known in like some of the right ways. Cause it's not like I haven't been this work in progress all along.
Yeah.
But to some degree, the work in progress I now am, maybe 40-year-old me will look at this and be like, that was a little early still. But I feel currently this is where I'm working towards. I now understand that that's what I'm working towards. Whereas before I was working towards it, but the compass really wasn't yet pointing north. It was just I knew it was pointing in the right general direction, but I didn't really have an understanding I didn't take enough lumps and bruises yet. So.
Exactly. Well, we're free now. That's what it points to. And we still feel tugged at and we're human, but we've kind of lost our minds and come out the other side in a new way. And to leave some on the table for our many episodes that I hope we do, I got to go be with my son, but I wanted to leave us with one quote from Rumi, which Rumi is a 1200s poet from Persia. And he's just the illest. And what I always thought was funny that seemingly no one else noticed was his name is spelled R-U-M-I, which is a code in and of itself. R-U-M-I? Yes, the answer is yes. Anyway, he says, and I'll leave us with this, he says, a worm in a vineyard spends all of his waking hours consuming, and it's all he thinks about is eating and eating, until one day, call it grace or something, the worm wakes up and he is no longer a worm. He is the entire vineyard.
Wow.
So on that note, I'm going to let I think I changed my mind too. We might play Soul Yawn and Sweet Fangs, which is the song where I say lunatic on the corner. So Kevin, let's put in Sweet Fangs real quick. And for the die-hard ears, we'll put Soul Yawn at the end of that. Scott, my brother, thank you so much, man. Really, to hit a flow state like that is like, you just boosted me up for another couple centuries to navigate the universe, man.
Amen. Same here, man. I love you and I greatly appreciate you.
I love you, man. Same. Yeah. To be continued.
Wide awake, laying here, thinking about falling tears, forming lakes, all these years, and now I'm crying, crying waves, crying, crying, dying to change, trying to make a way.
Moon language, all inside you. All right, got it.
Sweet, fine, hard to find. Moon language, all inside you. Speak strange, I kinda like it. Space bones, arrowhead. Make it bed, I don't want to. Sleepyhead, pillow dangerous. I'm talking about sweet fang to catch you off guard. I'm talking about sweet fang, the way she bites, the way she bites. I'm talking about sweet fang to catch you off guard. Keep talking about sweet fang, the way she bites me. A little bit too much for the moment. Saw an alarm, I was feeling lonely. One shot to the face of the phony. Heal the pain, let the rain flow. Kill the name, let the man be. Held a frame, sell the brain, wow. Well, the strange set the flame free. She opened her mouth again. Trippy lip red told me not rap, but no choice, I'm a dog in a cat's hood. Tchotchke on the dash in the fast lane. PCH, hear the birds in the background. Stop playing, I'm the man with the sound now. Never mind, I'll be gone by the time that you're back. You can have the crown, I'll be that lunatic on the corner that you pity as you pass by. Fair enough, I'm a fool, give you dap. Either way, all love till it cause heart attack. Give you dap. Either way, all love till it cause heart attack, yeah. I'm through hiding, trying to fit in to a broken mold. Tongue-tied in the infinite, trying to find my song. And the night is long, dark night of the soul. But it's almost morning, new dawn. This is a soul yawn. Automatic repeat, stuck in a loop, the fruit right on the tree. Fucking the roots up with our feet. Don't imitate the past, the scribble fate and fast forward. See past our own asses leap. Autograph the moon, shattered the glass ceilings. Feelings like tattoos, everybody got them. Rebellion is conforming these days, forgotten. Petri dish experiments gone wrong. Evolution's feeling like a snail, my pom-poms are on. I'm cheerleading the bastard go. It's fucking taking too long, I take my neighbor's face off cause I'm through hiding. Trying to fit in to a broken mold. Tongue-tied in the infinite, trying to find my song. And the night is long, dark night of the soul. But it's almost morning, new dawn. This is a soul yawn. Trying to fit in to a broken mold. Tongue-tied in the infinite, trying to find my song. And the night is long, dark night of the soul. But it's almost morning. I don't ever forget your armpit is connected to your arm, and that the darkness is the one who holds the star. Cause love is tasteless, making nauseous from a carbon copy heart. Like a pretty face with no scar, no beauty. Motivate my heart to break, so the sparks can enter and invent my fate. I take off the mask and take off into outer space lost. Gotta lose what we have to gain who we are. Motivate my heart to break, so the sparks can enter and invent my fate. I take off the mask and take off into outer space lost. Gotta lose what we have to gain who we are.